On March the 11th, 2011, the billions Tokyo had invested in quake-proof engineering and early warning systems proved their worth. They saved the city's structures and its people. Then, the tsunami struck. The tsunami was triggered by the explosive energy release of the earthquake, 100 kilometers off the coast. What caused it? Over centuries, the Japanese side of the tectonic fault line had been compressed and dragged downwards by the Pacific plate driving beneath it.
The whole upper plate behaves just basically like a rubber block. It just compresses and like a spring like this. And when the earthquake happens, it springs back.
The sudden upward flip of such a huge slab of rock lifted a 6-kilometer deep mass of water upwards to the surface of the sea. As it collapsed back, immense waves raced out across the ocean. Not like normal sea waves, more like shock waves from an explosion. Just a meter high, but over 100 kilometers from front to back, and traveling at terrifying speed.
The energy heaved up the sea floor. That displaced vast amount of water that we can see, made it its way on land, it made its way off around the Pacific.
One side of the wave hurtled out across the Pacific. The other side raced towards the coast of Japan.
Tsunamis travel very fast at a speed that depends on the water depth. And because in the deep ocean, tsunami travels very fast, reaching at times the speed of a jet aircraft.
At over 800 kilometers per hour, the wave took just minutes to reach the coast. Here, the shallower sea floor slowed down the front of the wave. The wave's fast-moving rear was still racing in. It began to catch up with the front. The increasing pressure pushed the seawater up into a rising swell. Five kilometers out to sea, a Coast Guard crew captured this extraordinary footage. The tsunami rearing up as the water beneath it grew shallower. Then, when they crested the first wave, a second loomed behind. The swell became a breaking wave as the rear of the wave continues to pile in, sucking in the sea ahead of it.
The very first thing that seems to have happened is that the sea left the land, and some of the footage we've seen shows a huge shoreline being exposed, and then the tsunami built up offshore, and the dynamics of the wave carried it inland. Probably a cubic kilometer of water just splashed landward and kept going until it ran out of steam.
These remarkable pictures caught the moment when the sea pulled back as the first wave roared in. The tsunami had arrived. The wave's effect was strangely unpredictable. At first glance, it seemed there was no discernible pattern to where it struck and when. First came Ofunatu in the north. Then Sendai to the south. And Miyako in the north again. Measurements from tsunami monitoring stations along the coast were equally puzzling. The height of the wave varied dramatically from town to town. But why? The varying depth of the seabed was partly to blame. Where the water was deeper, the tsunami traveled faster and reached land more quickly. Another factor is the complex detail of cliffs, bays, and inlets along the shoreline.
It boils down to how the wave is focused and defocused by the geography or the topography of the coastline itself.
This is Ofunato, where the wave hit first. Deep water off the coast offered little resistance to the wave. Tsunami warnings did sound, but here there was little time to get to higher ground.
The best early warning system people would have had would have been the fact that there was an earthquake. And people have got used to the fact that if you have an earthquake, there is a possibility of a tsunami that will follow. But in the timescale they had, there was very little time or very little opportunity for escape.
The tsunami hit Ofunato just 20 minutes after the earthquake.
Water that actually hit the coast will be well in excess of 1 billion, probably 10 billion tons of water. That's a little bit like taking 1 million swimming pools and just emptying them onto the coastal areas of northeast Japan.
15 minutes later, the tsunami hit Sendai, 116 kilometers south. The area around the city is mostly farmland, low-lying, fertile, and flat. That's why the tsunami barely slowed as it smashed ashore. The flat land was perfect for an airport, too. It opened just 4 years ago. A kilometer from the coast, it was deluged.
It hits very low-lying areas. There's nothing to stop it moving inland. And so it can move inland 6-7 kilometers without being impeded.
There's not much to slow it down, and because the wavelength of the tsunami is so big, it's not going to stop until it reaches something, reaches some sort of high ground, and it'll just keep on coming.
Next to be hit was the Miyako coast, 180 kilometers back to the north. What happened here highlights another mystery. The area had good tsunami defenses. The residents were prepared. They should have been safe. Last time a tsunami hit here was half a century ago. In the aftermath of that tsunami, they built these 10-meter-high seawalls, far higher than anyone thought they would need. Tsunami drills became a regular feature of life. Everyone knew what to do when the sirens sounded. On March the 11th, all along the coast, the sirens did sound, this time for real.
Go to the hill.
A tsunami was coming. This was not a drill.
Can you hear the sirens?
There's a hill outside of town that we're going to try to get to. Well, it's a precautionary measure, but I mean, you know, you never know. This town has a lot of history with tsunamis and a lot of death from it, so they're taking it pretty seriously, obviously.
The warning saved the lives of some. This footage captures the moments after the sirens sounded.
Here it comes!
The tsunami breached the coastal defenses. Miyako's high walls proved useless. Countless people died here. The tsunami was 10 meters high. Why did their 10-meter-high walls fail to stop it? With thousands of sensors along the coastline, the scientists already have part of the answer.
The fact that the shoreline has actually subsided means that the sea had plenty of space to go, and it basically filled up the empty space left by the sinking. Several villages have just been completely ruined with no survivors, and the human death toll is obviously going to be up in the tens of thousands when the final count is in.
The data from the sensors had revealed something incredible. The earthquake had caused the whole coastline to drop by up to a meter, lowering Miyako's walls, making the tsunami much worse. All along the coast, subsidence put towns in danger.
You've got the tsunami wave coming in, on top of what would be essentially a 2-meter higher vacuum of subsided land as it sweeps in, and there's not much to stop it until it hits higher ground somewhere.
But most at risk was the shut-down nuclear power plant of Fukushima. It had survived the earthquake, and here too there was a 5.6-meter defense wall, but now it had sunk over half a meter. 40 minutes after the quake, the wave smashed over the wall and flooded the diesel generators that were cooling the reactor cores. Backup batteries kicked in, batteries with just an 8-hour charge. With thousands already confirmed dead, and now the threat of a nuclear disaster, Japan was in crisis.